The Why Me Project, an exclusive presentation of Faith Strong Today.
In the month of February, I like to talk about LOVE, love.
Yeah, you do.
366 days a year, I like to talk about LOVE, love.
I am still waiting for you and your wife to have like your own relationship podcast or at least a book. Because you guys to me are like marriage goals. You're like the penguins. It's incredible. You need to share that knowledge.
I would share it. She would hide behind me.
That's true. Bless her.
And want nothing to do with this.
Yes. So since she, at this phase in her life, I'm going to say yet, not yet doing this, we just are so excited today for our guest because we're going to dive into the topic of marriage. It's the month of love. Right, Johnny?
That is it. Yeah. So speaker, author, podcaster. I don't even know, Arlene, if I can call you a marriage expert. Like I'm going to throw it all out there and we'll just see how it sticks.
You may call me happily married. Let's go with that.
Ooh, happily married.
25 years. Ooh. The marriage expert comes in that I've interviewed a lot of marriage people. So it's like I've rubbed shoulders. I've hopefully gained some information through not only osmosis, but actual practice.
Yes.
Yeah. Every time I've ever talked to Gary Chapman, I'm always like, oh, yeah. No, I still suck at marriage. Despite the fact you've given me these love languages, I'm still terrible.
Yeah. I'm working on my love language. That's right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I've written some books with Dr. Chapman, so I know exactly what you mean.
Yes. And it's funny too. The idea of like love languages for me, my husband was like, oh yeah, you like this. I like that. We need to figure out a better way of communicating.
And I think what is really fun is when you start getting this, like I like gifts. My husband and I like gifts and words, and my husband likes physical touch. So when he figured out like, wow, if I just bring her a coffee in the morning, like as a gift, that's like, wow. It took about 10 years to figure that out. That it was like, you bought me a $3 at that time, $2, $3 cup of coffee, and it just sent me over the moon. So that's kind of fun when you learn like, wow, this is not that hard. And they really like this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not fair because I bought my wife pistachios and they were not salted and she wants nothing to do with me.
Nothing to do. It had the opposite effect. Oh no.
What's the saying? The devil's in the details?
Devil's in the details.
Read the label.
All right. Note to self. Arlene, we like to ask a skill testing question because we never know where it's going to go. And that is, who are you and where did you come from?
Okay, well, my name is Arlene Pellicane, and my parents are from Indonesia, and I was born in New York. My dad wanted to leave Indonesia, most of his friends went to Europe, but he was like, I'm going to go to America. So my dad, you think of it now and it's like, it's your dad, but you think, wow, you were a very adventurous 20-something-year-old to leave your country and not know English and learn English by ordering pizza at a pizza place that you'd never seen. So
that's amazing.
I was, so it was really fun. So I'm an only child, so I've been doted on and spoiled and all those things. But people tell me, you don't act like an only child because I do stuff for other people. So they'll be like, I don't quite get that. And I'm happily married to James. I was that girl who really wanted to get married in high school, had all the crushes, wanted to find that man, but he just was not around. So high school went by, college went by, 4 years of work went by. And I thought, where in the world is this guy? So when I finally met my husband and married, I was very, very happy. And that was 25 years ago. We have 3 children, Ethan, Noelle, and Lucy. We have 1 in college and 2 in high school. Wow. And we live in San Diego, California. I love family. I just love like the idea of this is something you can work at. This is something you can have a strong marriage, be like, instead of thinking like, oh, my kids, oh, and then they become teenagers and they become these monsters and then they become these young adults and they're like leeches and they like stay on you forever. I like to be like, wait, what? Like, this is amazing. You have this baby that's adorable. You have these kids who think you're gold. You have these teenagers that are becoming interesting people. And then you will have adults that you actually like. Like, this is amazing. So I just love to podcast and talk to people about how can we make our marriages, make our families stronger. And then particularly with technology, since technology is such a big part and all of a sudden we're looking at our phones instead of each other and we're on watching TV, you get it. So we try to help families to figure that piece out as well.
Yeah. People say, oh, marriage is such hard work, but I've never heard people say marriage is a fun adventure to try to navigate.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think you're that kind of person.
Yes, that it can be fun. Like, how can we make this easier? How can we make this more fun? And, being separated and divorced and sadness, that's not so much fun either. And that's a lot of work. So you might as well put in the work to marriage and you get the fun of marriage also.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I say something like speaker, author, podcaster, what would you consider your sweet spot?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think speaker. So I enjoy speaking to people face to face, being able to talk to people afterwards. I think that's my favorite. But then I really do so I think podcasting would be next because I love podcasting, talking with people, learning from them. But then I'm like that half introvert, half extrovert. I'm probably like 51% introvert, 49% extrovert. So then I do like the writing because then that brings me back home and I'm just sitting in front of my desk and I don't have to see anybody for a day. And I like that too. So I am very blessed to be able to call all three arenas something that I do enjoy.
I want to rewind to your single days because, we had Valentine's Day this past month. There was Galentine's Day. There was Single Awareness Day. So that everybody feels included. And so here you are, a young woman looking for love and it's just not coming your way.
Yeah.
Can we just talk a little bit about that process for you and how did you navigate those days where you had the dreams and the plans?
Yes.
Just, man.
Yeah. I think waiting, right? You learn a lot about waiting. You understand that, wait, maybe there is something to be learned here. Maybe there's like patience or I think really appreciation. I think if I would have fallen in love and gotten married right away, I think I wouldn't have the appreciation that I do today of, and I'm not saying if you find your love, right, really early that you can't have this appreciation, but when you've had to wait for something, whether it's waiting for a job, waiting for a degree, waiting for a special someone, waiting to have children, all those things, that waiting actually is not wasted. And it does help you appreciate like, wow, this finally happened. I think, I wasn't seriously dating. I did seriously date in college and thought this is the one, but we broke up. And so that whole process of having a broken heart and just feeling that feeling of like, I can't even breathe. Like, like all I have to do is get through the day and breathe. Like Tom Hanks in Sleepless in Seattle when he says, well, I breathe in and I breathe out, I think going through those things, it is actually helpful. Like I know it doesn't feel helpful in the moment, but it helps you as a person to be able to go through those things of pain and realize I am going to come out on the other side of this. I think a lot of things right now are like, oh, we cannot be in pain. Like we've got to avoid that pain. We must escape. And but that pain really, it awakens you to the pain of other people. It makes you a more compassionate person. It makes you more grateful for what you have. So yes, it was a lot of waiting and it was a lot of watching the romantic movies and wondering why is that not happening to me? So those things were definitely there. But there's also this element of faith and hope of, you know what? I'm just going to keep trusting that this is going to work out. And the last thing I'll say about this is it also makes you think, I don't want to just wait for this person to live like a full life. I don't want to just think oh, my life really begins when I fall in love. No, what can you right now, right where you're at, you and your single self, what can I do that is exciting to me, that I'm learning, that I feel like I'm contributing to society, get into that groove because that way you're doing something. You're not just waiting around to live your life. You are already living your life. And that's really the way you want to enter marriage. Not oh, good. Now you complete me. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. Now my life begins because I met you. It's no. Let your life be as full as it can be as a single person. And then come alongside of another single who is also living that kind of life. And that's so much better than two people who are so sad and so down and just waiting for each other to be this soulmate that does not exist.
Yeah.
You've gained all this knowledge, but if you were to look back on when you were in high school going into college, Holly wanted to be a lawyer, realized that was not in the cards. I didn't know what I wanted to be, and I guess this was it. But looking at it now, because you wear so many hats, where did you see yourself graduating and going into college? Or was it where you are at the present?
Yeah, it is kind of weird if I look at we used to have journals. Remember this Dear Diary? And we used to have like books, right? We'd write, Dear Diary, I would like to be. And I really did write that I wanted to be a speaker because I liked giving speeches in high school. But then I thought, like, what in the world is a 20-year-old, 21-year-old who's going to pay me to like talk to them? Like, it's like, this is not going to work. But it was what I wrote down. Like, I do want to be a speaker. Right. So that is like something super sweet to me that, I probably started speaking in my 30s. So that something I wanted to do when I was a teenager did become something that I eventually did. So I'm super grateful for that.
What are the dangers in making marriage the end game?
Oh, such a good question. Yes, a lot of dangers, right? Because if you think, okay, like, this is it. Like, this is going to solve my problems. This is going to make me happy forever. You are my soulmate. I have finally found you. And when marriage is based on these either romantic ideals that 3 years in, you're like, wow, you haven't showered in like 3 days. Like, who is this person? Like when that romance wears off, when that person stops doting on you the same way that you did when you're dating. If you think, oh, this romance is the end goal, you're going to find yourself in trouble. So Brad Wilcox from the University of Virginia, he just had this article in the Wall Street Journal about how so many young people buy into this, oh, marriage is the soulmate thing.
Yeah.
When you think like marriage is a soulmate thing, then that ends in trouble because you get disillusioned. But if you go in thinking marriage is this thing, I'm building a family with this person. I'm going to build a life with this person. I'm going to commit to this person for life. I'm going to do everything in my power not to do anything that would make you want to leave me. And we're going to build a family together. And when people came in with that mindset, the longevity, is all there. So I think it has to start with that place and realizing, like we talked about before, it's not up to my spouse to make me happy. Like if I say, well, I'm not happy, it's his fault. I'm not happy, it's her fault. What has he done for me lately? What have she done for me lately? Like that's going to be a problem because you can't expect one person to be a mind reader, to be your happiness. Like it's giving someone that responsibility that no one can live up to. You have to have the choice of saying like, I'm going to choose to be happy, and they've done research on happipiness and they find, I believe like 50% of it is kind of how you're born, like your temperament. 40% just 10% is your circumstances, like what you go through. But 40% is what you choose, like what you bring to the table. And that's a huge chunk. And I think some of the statistics, a lot of times we'll think, well, the happiness will come when we get a college degree. Or this is what young people believe. The happiness will come when you go to the right college and then you get the good job and then you're paid more than everybody else and you've got this awesome job. That's what's going to make you happy. But what the research is showing is that's not true. Like that college, it'll give you a 64% boost in happiness. Making more money than most will give you an 88% boost. Your work satisfaction will give you a 145% boost. But being married, just plain married, gives you a 151% boost. And if you're in a good marriage, then you get this 545% boost, 5 times happier than the average person, simply because you're in a good marriage. So even though there's a disillusionment side, let's say, of like, don't expect your spouse to do all this stuff for you, but also realize that, wow, if you have a good marriage, you're in for a pretty good life. It's going to be a good run.
I'm going to jump in.
So I need to be good marriage and rich.
Yeah, that's
500% and 200%.
Now you're set. Okay, I heard another stat. It went like this. For the people who were the happiest, the most happiest were married men. The next were single women. Then it was single men. And the least happy out of all of them were married women.
That's what. Now I will admit I have not seen that stat. So
I don't think it wasn't like a scientific one, but I remember seeing that and I was like, well, I'm just destined not to be happy.
I think that might have been like, the 30 people that were in that college at that moment when they did the survey. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, we're dispelling those myths. That's not true.
Yeah, I
Not
would say,
true.
when they look across the board, it is married women and married men, like both genders.
Yeah.
So, but I think you can think of it true also anecdotally in your own life, who do you know and all those things.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
Yeah, I laughed when I saw it.
I remember growing up in the church, though, and like all of my friends at 18 and 19 wanted to get married to experience the fruits of marriage. If you do look at statistically now, we are getting, it's older, we're now older as we're getting married.
Very much so.
But how is that with the state of marriage? Where is the state of marriage from where we were, say, 20 years ago to say where we are now?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. National Marriage Week happens every year between February 7th and February 14th. And Brad Wilcox does a lot of research that we talk about. And so the state of marriage, like the good news is the divorce rate is down. So that's kind of like, okay, that's good news, but it's also because the marriage rate is down. So I think that's why that's correlated. It's like the marriage rate has fallen. There are less people married. So there are also less people divorced, but the marriage rate has fallen by 65%, since 1970. And what that means, like, for instance, if you look at the silent generation, they were 81% of them got married. The boomers, 61% of them got married. Gen X, 53% of them got married. Millennials, 44% are getting married. So you see, like, from the silent generation of our grandmas and our great grandmas, 81% of them getting married to millennials, 44%. I mean, it's really quite a big dip. That has a lot to do with what you're talking about in terms of the not waiting for marriage to live together, a lot of cohabitation happening, and then a lot of young people just buying into this idea that is really fed constantly to them through social media that, hey, you don't want to get married. You don't need a piece of paper for love. It's antiquated. It's old. You don't want the ball and chain of like having to be a mother and taking care of these screaming children. Like, you don't want that. And as a result of this, instead of seeing, I was with my daughters in high school and we were driving home and we saw a young father and he was pushing a stroller. He had, he had basically one that was like standing on the back bumper of the stroller, one that was in a baby carrier in the stroller, and then one that was forward facing in the stroller. So he was basically pushing 3 kids and he looked adorable. Like, he was really like, cute, and like they were all cute. It was like really cute, like who could handle this, but he can handle it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is the kind of stuff we need to be showing kids, that this is what manhood looks like. I am taking these 3 kids. I'm giving my wife a break and I'm taking these 3 kids and we are going on this amazing walk, So at this time, if the statistics hold true, 1 out of 3 young people they'll never marry. 1 out of 3 will never marry. And you think of, what does that do for the economy? What does that do for fertility rate and birth rate and replacement of people? What's going to happen to our population? And then on a very personal level, that might sound fun when you're 20s and 30s, but when you're 50, 60, 70, 80, and you have nobody to care for you because you don't have children, you might not have nieces and nephews, you haven't taken time to, cultivate a relationship with someone that's, would be your child's age. Like, this is serious. So in that sense, it is like, sound the alarm, like this marriage thing is pretty good, and play this movie forward. What is this going to mean if you decide that marriage is completely irrelevant?
Robots.
That's what it means. Robots.
You're right. You're right.
You answered all the questions. Right. End of interview. Yeah. Thank you.
And that is end of interview. And that is a bleak existence. So like Brad Wilcox says, his new book is Get Married. Get Married.
Yeah. Okay. So why get married?
If you're listening to this and you're single, this is to give you just a thought of like, well, let me reframe marriage. This is not like, let's force every single person in the world to get married. This is not what this is about. But when you look at marriage, you can see that, okay, married people, they have longevity. They live longer and they're healthier. A lot of that is because they're not lonely. Because if you're lonely, I heard a study, and maybe hopefully this wasn't like the study you heard, but I heard a study that being lonely was like health wise, the impact it had on your health as you age is like smoking, 15 cigarettes a day. Like, it just, you deteriorate so much faster when you are alone. So, you're not lonely. You're financially more stable. You have a lot more in assets and in money. We joked about being rich. You're a lot richer when you stay together, and you're a lot poorer if you either never marry or you divorce and have to split everything. So you're economically more stable. You're healthier. You're happier, as we already talked about, that 545% boost. And it's a better way to raise children, that when children are raised by a mom and a dad in a stable, loving environment, that just is a huge boost to any child growing up. And it is interesting. It's like, you hear this talk about, oh, well, marriage is not really important, but it's like kind of the rich elites who don't need marriage to be successful, like they are married and they're saying that marriage isn't that important. But you look, and if you are poor, then if you want to go like kind of move up socially and be able to make more money and to make your way and to do all these things, then when you see places, communities where there are more people married, you see more upward mobility. And so a lot of that, we don't really talk about that my goodness, if marriage, and all you have to do is think of a family, that if there's just a single parent there with these kids, that it is harder financially to make it. It is harder to give them the advantages that they need to continue to move forward. So all that to say, marriage is so good, and you just have to talk to anyone who they either the contrast of being raised in a single parent home or the contrast of being raised in a home where there are two married parents who love each other. Just the day in, day out of life is so different.
Yeah.
I do want to talk a little bit about the loneliness, though. A few weeks ago, we talked to Dr. John Deloney, and we were talking about marriage, and we were talking about mental health. But he also said there are times where we're going to sit on the couch and we're going to be 6 inches away from each other, but we're on our phones and we're really like 6 miles apart. Totally. How does technology then weigh in on marriage? And is it affecting our marriages in that way?
I think it's the new mistress, or I don't know what the guy of a mistress is, but it's like this acceptable thing that's in the room that is taking the life out of so many marriages. I have a book, Calm, Cool, and Connected, 5 Digital Habits for a More Balanced Life. And in the book, I asked this question, is your spouse more interesting than your phone? And it's like, yeah, they used to be. That's why you picked him. But now that you've known him for a while, it's like, no, my phone, let's be honest, is way more interesting. It has the movies I want. It has shopping. It has stock. It has news. It doesn't ask anything of me. It goes exactly where I want it to go. I can numb out. I can escape. I can be amused. And wow, it's all in this little glowing rectangle. And it's completely socially acceptable for me to carry this wherever I go. And for us to be on a date with it, for us to, instead of like snuggling, and all this business at night, instead we're back to back, each of us on our phones, or maybe we're watching Netflix and we're falling asleep. Like, it is a huge thing. Business Insider says we touch our phones over 2,000 times a day, swiping, tapping, all this stuff. Can you imagine if you just reached out to your spouse 2 times a day with a kiss or with a hug and just like, babe, I love you so much? Can you imagine, like, your spouse would be like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So
are you
I love
okay?
to tell people, don't send so much attention to your phone. It doesn't care. Put it to your spouse. And just, if you're brave enough to take this dare, that you would ask your spouse, am I spending too much time on my phone? Do you feel like I'm ignoring you? Do you feel like I'm giving you the attention that I need? That you need? And I tell you what, we will not ask this question, because that means that your spouse will then ask it of you. And then you'll be like, oh man, I got to put down my phone, so we will not ask the question, because we don't want to put down our phones either. So I just dare you, like, ask your spouse, hey, how are we doing with the phone? Do we need to like put it down more? And just commit to that, like, meal-free, not meal-free, that would be bad, meal-free dinner, screen-free dinner, that you will have dinner and there will be no screens present.
Okay. The first time ever we're going to do a challenge. I want everybody who's listening to touch your spouse 2,000 times like you would your phone.
That's right. Can you imagine? It's going to help the fertility rate. This is going to be fantastic.
Oh my gosh. I might be like, please stop touching me. I'm overstimulated.
Yeah, that's
right.
Like, can you just go away? I got to go grocery shopping.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. All right. Curious about your why me moment, because you've dedicated a big chunk of your life to encouraging people who are in relationships and their families, and creating the home as a safe place and a place of growth. So this is your journey, but has there been a moment along the way where you just ask God, why me?
when we talked about how I waited for my husband and then we waited to get children. Both of us, we didn't have any infertility in our background. So I thought for sure it'd be super easy to have children. And then when we weren't having children, it was like, what is happening? And then we found ourselves at this infertility clinic. Like, what in the world? Why me? Like, this is not supposed to be our story.
Yeah.
So we did have trouble having kids. I had a fibroid in my uterus. And then once we had surgery on that, but that was a very lengthy process. But once we finally did that, we did have our firstborn, Ethan. So it was very exciting. But then we miscarried and I was pretty far along. I miscarried at 26 weeks. And that I think was definitely the why me moment. But I will tell you, we lost that little girl. And when all that was happening, I felt God's presence closer to me than I think maybe than I ever have felt. It's just like in every moment he was there, so near, just like I would always ask, like at church, they would say, like, if you want to come forward for prayer, you can. And I always did, always. Like, my baby's in trouble. They're telling me that my baby's going to die in the womb. Please pray for me. Please pray for me. So, we went through that and always got prayed for. And so that why me moment of losing that little girl was also a sweet time of like the presence of God, like the prayers of God's people, like older people, like grandmas coming around me and saying like, it's going to be okay. And so we said goodbye to that little girl. And my husband was sure, like, God's going to give us another girl. Like, I just know it. I just know it. I just know it. He was really sure. And we said goodbye to that little girl in April. And, oh no, I'm sorry. I'm doing my dates wrong. It was in April that I did the pregnancy test and found out that we were pregnant again. And so we couldn't believe it. And then, pretty much a year later, after that we had lost that girl, we welcomed a new little girl, Noelle Joy, into our lives. And she is now going to graduate from high school,
Aww.
So I'm just that was the why me moment of like, why do I have to go through this, losing a baby? That was the why me moment.
Yeah.
Was it helpful in that your husband was like, we're going to have another girl? Because I know that there are people who have gone through it and they're like, I don't know if I want another one. I don't know if I want to go through this pregnancy.
Yeah, it was like, yes, I just know, like, that hope, that there was that hope, like whatever, let's keep trying. Instead of like, hey, let's give it. And that's a joke in itself, right? Like, my husband's always like, let's keep trying to have a baby. That's weird, you get that. But, but it was that hope of like, yeah, let's try for more children, and we did have two other girls. I miscarried again, but much earlier on. But so I had two miscarriages and we have 3 children, with us. So it was very, very good.
Incredible. It's a lot of people dealing with fertility situations. And so I love that people are talking about it more now because I think it helps with the healing, knowing that you're not alone in that journey. I agree.
Yeah, it's so true, Holly.
I know we have to wrap up soon, but I just want to ask about the faith component about your life and just how has faith played a role in you, being that little girl who wanted to have a family to where you are today? Yes.
Having faith in God has been a huge kind of a central part. It is God's goodness. Like, all these gifts are from God. All the blessing of a family, I believe, of love and all those things are gifts from God. And I think the trust, like, the morning that I lost that little, when I found out, the morning that I found out that my baby was so sick, the verse I had read was from Proverbs, and it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge God, and he will direct your paths. And that really is a good capsule of like, my life has been, Lord, I trust you. I'm so grateful that I don't have to like figure this life thing out on my own. Like, I can trust you. You know so much more than I do. I can trust you. You are trustworthy. And that as I dedicate everything to you, if I say like, Lord, I need your help, like, I don't know what to do, give me wisdom, God will give that. That he is a loving father who wants to answer our prayers. Does that mean that life is always easy and everyone gets healed? And no, that's not what that means. But it means God will walk with you. So God's been so near to me. And it really is like, I'm working on my 10th book right now. I don't have an agent. I did this I started when my kids were small. Like, only God could do this, so I kind of feel like only God could have opened these doors and allowed me to do different things and taken the time, like, okay, God, I got 2 extra hours, you just make it work, and he's just done that over and over and over again. So I really see how God has come through so many times.
Valentine's Day is a one day. You guys have made it into a National Marriage Week. But if we want more information, if we want more resources, is there a good place for us to go with regards to marriage stuff?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to marriageweek.org any day of the year. So marriageweek.org, and you'll find creative date night ideas. You'll find a couple's connection plan of like, okay, I want to connect to my spouse, but we are staring at each other. I have no idea what to do anymore. Look at that plan. It'll give you some ideas. And then you can look for my books. Calm, Cool, and Connected is one I talked about if you're on your phone too much, I dare you, go get Calm, Cool, and Connected. And then my website is arlenepellicane.com, and I'm the host of the Happy Home Podcast.
I want to know, just quickly, your top 3 things that someone can do if they feel like their marriage is hitting or in a rough patch.
Yes. Number 1, schedule a date night. Even though you don't feel like it, just schedule it and do it. Number 2, speak the love languages. Take the quiz. If you've never done it before, take the quiz, and maybe you guys are just like crossing paths, like you're just miscommunicating right now. So take that quiz. And then the third one is commit to growing, like do something to grow your marriage. So maybe you're going to read a book together. Maybe you're going to go to counseling. Maybe you're listening to a marriage podcast together, or you're going to schedule a time to go to a marriage retreat. So do one or all of those things. Date night, schedule that marriage retreat, and do those love languages.
And treat your spouse like your phone.
My goodness, can you imagine? Be like, you are so interesting. I cannot take my hands off of you. I must look at you all the time and just check to make sure you're okay. Isn't that funny? I love that.
Why do you keep buffering? Why do you keep buffering?
Really funny.
Arlene, this has been amazing. Thank you for taking some time today and sharing your heart.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Thanks, Holly.
Statistics are something that I really do love. Sometimes I just figure, how do they come up with this? 548% said this. And listen, if it's love and it's 540, I'm all in.
There you go. See, I just pull statistics that are more depressing. I guess that would go to show my love-hate relationship with the idea of romance.
I heard that it's not good. She's like, I don't know what you're saying, Holly. Like that, statistically, you're wrong.
That's news to me. It was a long time ago. I was single and bitter, and I just held that. I was like, yes, this is true.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, a marriage week, it's great that we could focus a day. It's great that we could focus on a week. There are people who are dealing with not being able to find the one. Yeah. There's some single people out there. Like, the thing is that we, regardless of marriage or not, we need to be community, and we need to be there for one another. And it just so happens if you get married, it's like that added bonus.
Yeah, it's community that you can't escape.
Yeah. That's right. Walls.
Yeah. 2 a.m. Mom, I'm scared.
Your dad's right beside me. Wake him up.
Why me?
Right. But no, Arlene was fantastic. It's so great. I mean, there's so much more that I wanted to dive into, but then again, it's like you have so much, you don't have all the time. And then, I mean, I love numbers. I would have got buried in the numbers and it would have been great. I was writing things down. So it's kind of one of those things to A, go back and read a bunch of her books, and then B, go back and re-listen to our podcast 9 times, and then tell friends and family members about it.
Exactly. Share. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review. If you are watching any bits and pieces of this on YouTube, please use this as a tool to encourage people that you know.
Because we like marriage.
What is that from? Princess Bride? Oh, that was love. True.
Love. True love. Marriage.
Here we are, guys. This is us.
Check us out. faithstrongtoday.com.